E. Seymour, founder of Seymour of Sycamore, and the inventor of aerosol paint. The legacy goes back to 1949 when he devised a novelty spray gun to demonstrate an aluminum paint that he had created for painting steam radiators. This is what gave the Founding Fathers their idea to start writing their names and later their artwork on the walls. It was because of the invention of stray paint cans that gave birth to graffiti writing. Every child in NYC knew some form of graffiti writing. It just was a skill of the youth. Yesterday and today, graffiti writing and the use of stray paint is still one big element of the hip-hop culture. First and foremost, people got to understand that the Founding Fathers and Mothers didn't create graffiti writing. What we created was bombing and tagging, but the world called us graffiti artists. We started the drawings of characters and created the wide markers, making an art form out of our graphic skills. The founders first started out by using glow in the dark spray paint. Founders like my boy Black Melvin started making wide markers using blackboard erasers, tape ink, and the big iron lighter cases. The Founding Fathers of hip-hop were all bombers and taggers. Being a graffiti artist was a must amongst all of us. It was used not so much as art, but a marketing and advertising skill. Graffiti started out as something for our name recognition. Everywhere we went, we would let it be known that we were there. People all over NYC know our names. Therefore, when we ran into people and said our names, they would automatically say that I heard of you or, damn, your name is all over the place. We were like idols back then because people used to see our names up on lights, on trains, in parks, handball courts, buses, buildings, truck boxes, and anywhere and everywhere. People used to actually go crazy when they met one of us in person. Those people used to point us out to their friends or family members and then tell them where they met us, how we looked, or how cool we were, and things like that. By doing that, they would make themselves celebrities among all those that wanted to hear what they had to say about us. To know one or more of us was to be down with us in their own little ways. Now, I told you in the beginning that every Founding Father had to be graffiti artists because that was our form of marketing and advertising ourselves. But the funny part about all this is that before we even knew what those two words meant, we'd already mastered their concept. Although all the Founding Fathers and Mothers were writers, bombers, and taggers, there were a few crews who mastered the game. The crews were 1, the 7-Ups 2, the Serious Killers 3, the Defenders 4, the Death Squad, Magnificent Team 5, TMT Crew 6, TFP Crew 7, TNT Crew. That's all, but I like to say that graffiti writing started way because we became a culture. Most people don't understand that our association with Latinos didn't come from breakdancing, DJing, or partying. The association between us starts with graffiti writing, in which there was a very few Latinos who were nice with their skills. Peace to all the bombers, taggers, and graffiti artists. The hip-hop culture started with the ex-gang members. The culture's true birth date would be the day of the big meeting with the heads of all the gangs of NYC. That date on Ho Ave and 174th in the Bronx, NYC was the date of the gang's peace treaty, which kicked off the birth of hip-hop. In New York, two of the biggest gangs were the Black Spades and Peacemakers. The Black Spades had members that number in the thousands. The Peacemakers were the biggest armed gang in the country. It's the ex-gang members of these two gangs that established the hip-hop culture. Africa Bambaataa, one of the heads of the Black Spades at that time, made it official when he registered and legalized the hip-hop organization called the Zulu Nation. Its organizational center, right in the very heart of the Bronx River Projects. Although Bambaataa didn't create the culture, he was the first one to legalize it, and that's why we call him a godfather of the culture. Then there is DJ Big Lele, who at the time was one of the heads of the Peacemakers and created the hip-hop crew PM Fun City. Then there is Cash, ex-gang member of the Peacemakers who created the first breakdancing bike riders crew, and Black Shah, who had Kool Herc under his wings, an ex-Black Spade with the biggest crew on the west side of the Bronx. It was these ex-gang members who started the culture. Gangbanging in New York basically ended in the mid-1970s after the Peace Treaty of 1971 until the late 1980s to 1990s from people coming home from prison. In the 1980s, there were big wars between the 5%ers, the Nation of Gods and Earths, and Latinos. A Latino who knew of the Latino gang of the West Coast started the first East Coast Latin Kings. Thereafter, other Latinos created gangs also to fight black prisoners and the Latin Kings. At that time, there was no more black gangs in New York until someone got locked up in New York City from the West Coast and saw how the Latino gangs were jumping black prisoners. He created the first black gang in over 20 years, the East Coast Bloods. It wasn't until someone came home from jail in Buffalo, New York, and went out to the West Coast to enlist some Crips to revenge the killing of his brother that the second black gang was created in New York, the East Coast Crips. Like I said, ex-gang members established the hip-hop culture, so it's no surprise to me that they still play a major part in the culture today. Now, can something good come out of that association? Well, we just gotta see what the future of hip-hop brings you. But like everything else in life, you are gonna have your good as well as your bad. Especially of those everythings are coming from the voices and actions of the disenfranchised and the streets of the have-nots. I would like to end this by setting the record straight. Society is quick to associate the hip-hop culture with gangs, gangsters, or drug dealers. The truth is that the hip-hop culture did not create the gangs, gangsters, or drug-dealing culture in this country. The whole culture of gangs, gangsters, drug dealers came from Western gunslingers in the old Wild West. That culture has continued throughout the history of the United States in one form or another. Gangs, gangsterism, and drug dealings is as much a part of the United States culture as American apple pies and the white picket's fence. It wasn't influenced by hip-hop. Hip-hop was influenced by it. Therefore, please stop accusing the hip-hop culture for the bad influence of gangs, gangsters, and drug dealers when those bad influences were here in this country way before the first black slave was even set free or before there was an Italian monster or Cuban cocaine lord. Especially way before there was even a hip-hop breakdancer from the Bronx. If society still has a problem setting rightful blame, then I suggest that you be out of town by sundown or be ready to strap iron. Now that's gangster. Now, which method do you truly believe created an equal playing field in this country? The culture of the Martin Luther Kings or the culture of a hip-hop era of Black Doc Holidays and Billy the Kids? Now, another reason why the ex-gang members' knowledge is so important is because it also addresses the questions about whether or not homosexuals in the hip-hop culture in the beginnings. Let's settle these questions now. The first question is whether or not was there b-boys dancers who were founding fathers, mothers of the culture that were homosexuals? The answer to that question is yes, and they were ex-gang members. The second question is whether or not was there rappers/hype persons who are founding fathers and mothers of the culture that were homosexuals? The answer is yes, and they were ex-gang members. The third question is whether or not was there graffiti writers who are founding fathers and mothers that were homosexuals? The answer is yes, and they were ex-gang members. Now, here is where the answer to those three main questions gets a little tricky. All the known founding fathers and mothers who were homosexuals, that rappers, b-boys dancers, hype persons, and graffiti artists were all butches, lesbian, or bisexual women. There was no known male homosexuals who were rappers, breakdancers, graffiti artists or hype persons amongst the founding fathers and mothers of the culture. Now don't get me wrong, there were male homosexuals who were down with the butches, lesbians and bisexual women crews or ex-gang members. These male homosexuals were boosters, who got men's clothing out of stores for us. Some were robbers, so they knew a lot of the b-boys who were stick-up kids. In some cases, they helped set up robberies for us. The truth of the matter is that homosexuals were down with the culture from the onset. I told you from the beginning that I was going to give you the afraid to tell and what wannabes can't tell. Raw, uncut, and unknown facts and stories of hip-hop's beginnings. Let's clear the records. Homosexual men were not barred from the culture. Homosexual male predators of young boys were barred from the culture who just happened to be undercovers male homosexuals. Now, if Afrika Bambaataa is a godfather of hip-hop, then I am the pharaoh of the culture. If you know your history, you will know that a pharaoh is the king of all of Egypt, the birthplace of mathematics, the science, philosophy, and any other known and unknown teachings given to the world. I'm to hip-hop culture, what ancient Egypt was to the birth of civilization to the world. I am its beginnings, and just like the history and teachings of most of yesteryear, Pharaoh's knowledge are written within the walls of the great pyramids of ancient Egypt. So too would mine be written on the walls of the minds and souls of the hip-hop generation through my books, films, and their lifestyle. Ex-gang members created the hip-hop culture, and anyone forgets that, and history has a way of remembering you.